before we begin with the commandments, yesterday in the church, we have the beginning of a season that we call Lent. And it's a season of self-reflection. And so we begin these 40 days of penance, okay? 40 days of personal growth as we await the resurrection. And then we begin another season in the church, which is the season of Easter. And then we have 50 days to celebrate. And so there's always, as much as we have time of penance, we always have more times of celebration. So in this season of Lent, we're called to look inside and if you were able to attend the Ash service or an actual mass yesterday, you heard the gospel, and the gospel calls on us to pray, to fast, and to do acts of charity. And so we have this season in which we focus on doing those three things a little better than we're doing it today, okay? And so we look inside, and the intent is not to beat ourselves up or to give up sweets and coffee and cigarettes and beer and wine. Although all those things are good in moderation, it's good that we give all that up. But the important thing is that by giving something up, it's going to have a positive effect on someone else. And so this Lenten season, as we pray more, we will be praying, or we try to pray and be more attentive to the needs of others. One of the things that we left out in our prayer, and I hope that some of you actually thought of it, we need to pray for peace. World peace is at its very critical state, and so it's one of the things that we should put into prayer every single day of this Lenten season. And so we pray for the needs of others. We focus on others rather than on ourselves. We fast. Now, one of the greatest forms of prayer is to offer up the desire to eat for a need that we may have. And that's what we call fasting, okay? It's when we do without consumption of food so that we can incorporate that sacrifice into our prayers. So we're called to pray, to fast, and to acts of charity. And here, this is where we become more attentive to the needs of others. And one of the practices that we follow during the Lenten season is that on Fridays we don't eat meat, right? So pizza, fish, just abstain from meat and and eat fish. Now, that's a sacrifice for many of us, but it's not a sacrifice if, let's say, you give up a Big Mac and then you go to Red Lobster. That doesn't work. That's not the intent of the sacrificial act. What we want to be able to do, and I think we need to go back to how this whole thing started. Now, in the days when this tradition began, only the rich people could eat meat. You got to remember that most animals that people had were animals that sustained their livelihood. So if you had a cow, it was for milk. If you had sheep, it was for wool or milk. And so you couldn't do without that animal because that animal sustained you. And so these individuals that were poor would go fishing, and so they would be fed from whatever fish they were able to bring home. And the interesting connection here is that the rich would be able to kill a cow. They'd have a party. There was no refrigerator, so every time they killed an animal, it would be a feast for their entire family, and they would eat more than they needed to eat. The church recognized, he says, listen, we need to identify with the poor. And until you make yourself like the poor, you'll never be like them. And so the church says on Fridays during Lent, and basically the practice should be followed the whole year, okay? But they leave it as optional to the individual, but it should be practiced because it allows you to remember the poor. If you cannot identify with the poor, you're blinded to their needs. And so when you become like them, you start to recognize what it's like to be in their shoes. And so this is what this beautiful season of Lent is all about. It's a humble way of us looking at each other and then looking at the world through different lenses. You know, we go see a doctor, and every time we're getting glasses, he says, better? Which one's better? This one, that one, right? And we keep looking through those lenses, and every time he puts a different lens in, it almost seems like it gets better, right? Well, in Lent, if we follow the practice of fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, charity, you'll realize that at the end, it does look better. The world becomes a better place to live in not because the world has changed, but because we have changed. At the end of the day, that is the goal. For us to recognize and be critical of ourselves. What in my life can I do without so that I can be there for someone else? If our time is being tied up with this a whole lot, well, let me say, if I'm going to give that up. And if you think that that's not a big deal, give it up. Give it up, and you're going to see how attached we are to this thing. Last year, and I've been doing it now this is my second year. I give up sweets and I give up bread. Guys, I'm like this today, all right? Because I'm going nuts. I mean, I'm getting the sugar withdrawal, and never mind Fat Tuesday, never mind none of that nonsense, man. I'm going nuts. But it's a reality that I give something up for those people who are addicted to drugs, who have a hard time being able to stay sober. Well, I want to give something up for them. And so I want to be able to identify with them and overcome that. And see, this is one of the other things that this season will also allow you to see, is that you can overcome your vices. So I'm not going to do this. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to clean up my mouth a little bit. I'm not going to drop those F-bombs every 2 or 3 words. I don't need to decorate the word that comes behind it. All right. I'm going to be more aware of that. And so I'm going to remove that. And so there's sometimes it can be so simple. And at the same time, the end result will be so profound that you'll come to understand that, yes, I can become a better version of myself. Yes, I can do this. So Lent allows us, and it starts with Ash Wednesday, which is like the gateway into this Lenten season, as we walk through it and begin to address areas in our lives that maybe keep us from finding the time to pray. You guys have the book. If you offer a rosary for peace in the world, that'd be awesome. And if you're not doing it every day, if you're just praying on Thursdays, hey, that's great. But man, can you imagine if you prayed on Friday too? And before you know it, you know what? I'm going to pray on Mondays as well. And then the following year, I'm going to start doing it 4 days a week. And before you know it, And you, before you know it, you realize that I have changed. I am not the same person that I used to be. I have more time for God, and because I have more time for God, I have more time for my neighbor, for those people around me. And so that is the purpose of Lent. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's 3 days that the Catholic Church is always full, right? Christmas, Easter, and Ash Wednesday. They all show up, and it's a shame. I love to tell them, boy, we're open every Sunday too, but the sad part is that though they come, they like yourselves and like me, I would go and didn't connect. I would be there, but I didn't feel the connection. And I thank God that I persevered. And I went there long enough that sooner or later I fell in love with it, and here I am today. But the reason why you receive the sign of the cross on your forehead is because it was a tradition in the old days that whenever you had committed a very serious sin, and you were asking for forgiveness from the village, you would put ashes all over your head. And I'm not talking just a little cross. If those of you who went to the service yesterday, some of you get a really nice cross on your forehead, and then others get a paw. Like, dude, you could have done a better job, man. It looks like somebody hit me with a piece of charcoal on my forehead, right? If you ever go, I always do a nice one. I'm very good at that because I want to make sure that you witness what you got. I don't want people like, what the heck happened to you, right? But what the point I'm trying to make is that they will cover their head with ashes, and it was a public testimony that they had committed a sin, but they were yearning for forgiveness. And so they would do the full season of Lent. They would wear sackcloth. And if you ever seen a sackcloth, is what they used to ship coffee beans with. It's not a comfortable shirt, right? They would wear this, and they would cover themselves with ashes until Easter. And on Easter, they would wash themselves clean and remove the sackcloth, and they would rejoice in who they have become. And so, remember, in Easter, what we celebrate is the resurrection, and not the Easter bunny, not the chocolate candy, none of that nonsense. That's commercial stuff. What we really connect with is that not only do we celebrate the resurrection, but we also celebrate that we are also a new person, a new being that we have just began. Okay, so that is Lent in Lent 101. As we enter it quickly, but it is, and hopefully, if you were able to attend yesterday, it's done on the first. It's the initiates the Lenten season. It begins on Ash Wednesday. Okay, and it's called Ash Wednesday because obviously we use ashes. And now, do you know why we call Fat Tuesday Fat Tuesday? It's also a Catholic tradition. Okay, so whatever you gave up, whatever you gave up or you were going to give up during the season of Lent, it was the day that you ate it, and then you became guilty, gluttony. Okay, you will eat more than you needed to eat, but because the excuse was so that it won't go bad. So you overdose on sugar, on meat, your cholesterol went sky high, everything, so that nothing would spoil. You will eat all the stuff that you will give up. And to each his own, but it defeats the purpose. Because at the end of the day, if all you're worrying is about what won't spoil, you're losing the connection. Because what the end result that we're trying to find is so that our heart won't spoil, that we will find our heart to become more loving, more caring for neighbor. Okay, so that is the intent, and I hope that. And one of the things that I used to always encourage was to keep a Lent journal, so that you, at the end of the day, you would feel that you needed to write something in that journal as far as having done something for someone else, having given up something for something, or giving up or giving yourself the time to do a little more prayer, whatever works for you. The intent is that we fall into a habit that we don't only just do this during the Lenten season. We do practice this our entire year. And once you've reached that point, man, you're on your way. You're in buen camino, as they say, moving in the right direction. So that is just a quick introduction into Lent, into the Lenten season. And like I said, 40 days. And come Easter, you're going to have 50 days of celebration. And but in order to celebrate, first we have to do the penance. We have to do the penance, and then woo, we're there. You know, it's like being in the car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? Shut up. Well, I'll tell you when we're there, right? And when we get there, man, we forget how many times we asked, are we there yet? Because we finally arrived. And that's the whole point. That is what we hope will be accomplished through this Lenten journey that we're on now. Okay? Any questions?
Deacon, this is Crystal and Rick. Our question is about the fasting, since this is pretty much like our first season, our first time going through Lent officially. Okay. Are we supposed to, and I was Googling a lot, but Google, has so many different answers. For the fasting, are we supposed to be doing the fasting in smaller meals every day for all the 40 days, certain days, or how does that work?
Here we go, Crystal. The church tells us that on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, we're supposed to fast. No meat on those days. That's by the book. Okay, you ain't no meat. And when we say fasting, it's now when you turn 60, it's from 14 to 60 that the church asks us to follow that guideline. If you're 60, I don't know what that's like. Haven't been there yet, and I'm lying. But once you turn 60, then you're given like a pass. You don't have to abide by this. If you have health conditions, you also have a pass. But if you can, and to me, I still do it, and I'm past the 60. But the reason why is because, once again, it's the discipline. It's the discipline to humbly correct your desires, the desires of your body, so that you can overcome the desires of the body, that your mind can control your body. That's the one thing that a lot of times we lose, because the mind is leading, the body leads the mind, and we go wherever the body wants it. No, we want to be able to tell the body, no, we're not going to do that, and we're not going to do that. Okay, now getting back to the fasting, one meal a day, that's fasting. Now, you can have 2 small meals, but it cannot be as large as one meal. Some people just need to eat during the day because they can't go without eating for a length of time. So the church says, well, 2 smaller meals that would combine would be no more than 1. Again, the practice is the purpose, right? It's not so much, it's like prayer. It's not so much what we say, but with the inclination and the desire of how we say it, right? I can say, I love you. And I can also say, I love you, right? And it's different, and it sounds different because it is different, okay? So the intent is no meat on Good Friday, okay? There's definitely no meat. Now, what happens if you eat meat and you forget? You didn't intentionally do it, okay? It's a sacrifice that's asked so that we may be able to connect with the sacrifice on the cross, okay? Jesus didn't hang on the cross because he had nothing to do on that Friday. So he gave himself up. So my desire to eat, hey, listen, Father Jose Luis one day, one Good Friday, he goes, they invite him to lunch. He gets to Versailles, he sits down, everybody orders food, and Father Jose Luis says, I'll have a palomilla. And that's a steak sandwich. I mean, a steak dinner. And the lady looks at him, and he's wearing the collar. And the lady looks at him, and she says, "You sure, Father?" He says, yeah, well done. Yep. And he gets it. And he says he took one slice and eats it. And then he says, "Oh my God, I totally forgot." But here you are, not intentionally wanting to do that. I've done it. I know I have in the same way. One bite, and it always seems like it's after you pay for it, and it's one bite into your mouth, you realize, oops, I screwed up, right? But remember that the important thing is that you don't do it intentionally. That if it happens, it's an unintentional error in judgment or just lapse. But I guarantee you that if you are able to stay connected in prayer and in fasting and acts of charity for those 40 days, when Good Friday comes, you won't have to remember. You'll know it by heart. You'll know that special day means something. Okay? So did I answer the question, Crystal?
I have
Yes.
a question.
Okay. Go ahead, Molly.
Tony, is it supposed to be, Deacon Tony, is it supposed to be every Friday during Lent? That's what I thought.
Now, you got to remember, it's supposed to be every Friday throughout the year. Okay?
Really?
Yes, that has never gone away. The church just pulled away from enforcing that, but it's supposed to be a practice given by us in charity. We offer it up to the Lord every Friday. Every Friday, to us, it should be a day to remember the sacrifice at Calvary. That's the intent. Okay?
Because I try not to every Friday.
Yeah. So what you want to be able to, and it's not about beating yourselves up, right? Yeah. The intent is for allowing yourself to become more aware, more connected to the Christ. Remember when they nicknamed those followers of Christ Christians, right? The intent was to make fun of them because they were trying to be Christ-like. And they were right. Have fun with it, because I am trying to be like him in everything. Ask the many people who are being killed for the faith right now, and because they refuse to deny their faith. Why? Because they want to be more Christ-like. They want to give themselves in sacrifice to do the will of the Father, and they won't deny the Father. That's the intent, Mother. It's not so much and we spoke about this Sunday on the homily. It's not following the law. It's the desire for us to change our hearts. When we change our hearts, we don't have to worry about the law. We got these 10 commandments that we're going over now. The day you really, really recognize that I love God so much that I won't want to do any of things to him because they offend him, not because he's trying to keep them from me, but because they bring him pain. Because when I do not kill, when I take the life of someone, it was God's creation. God had a plan for that individual. God had from the moment that we are brought into the world, we are part of his dream. We have a mission. And so we get together here on Thursday, and you think, well, that's because we got nothing else to do, or because I want to do this. No, you're absolutely wrong. What we're all sharing here is fulfilling a desire from God preparing us for something that we are yet to do or yet to share. And that's the reality. But what happens is sometimes people get so caught up in all these things, that 10 things that I can't do, and they forget what's behind these 10 things is a loving heart that doesn't want to see anyone get hurt. And so when we speak and we spoke about this when we were looking at the four being that centerpiece of the seesaw, from then on, it's all about neighbor, me and neighbor, me and neighbor, me and neighbor. And so what is God watching? Watching me steal from neighbor, watching me lie about neighbor, watching me desire neighbor, watching me want to have what neighbor has. All these things are not good for us, and they're definitely not bringing joy to the Creator who created us to love neighbor. Remember that the whole 10 commandments can be summarized into two: love God above all things and love neighbor like yourself. That's it. If you can't see the heart of God behind those, it's still a journey. It's still a journey. Okay? So, Mother, did I answer the question?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I
Right.
gave up bad words and I already messed up 3 times, but I didn't know how bad my mouth was.
We'll pray for you, Mother. We'll pray for you. We'll pray for you. And I came in here and I told Myra, I said, give me something to eat, man, because I'm going nuts. I want to grab crap. I got this secretary at work that she keeps a bowl of chocolate kisses. And I says, get these things out of here now, because get behind me, because you're going to kill me this Lent. Unreal. All right, go ahead. Any other questions?
I want to share something. In the Philippines, I grew up that the moms on Fridays, what's in the menu is always fish. We always knew that we will have fish every Friday. And by the way, 2021 is the 500th year of the gift of Christianity to the Philippines.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Okay, now this is for Deacon Tony. On Sunday, I can be wrong. This is what I pick up from Sunday's sermon. And I want you to talk a little bit more about it, because I kind of got lost as you were talking.
Okay.
You said that suffering is redemptive.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about it?
Okay.
For us?
All right. Suffering, and we want to make sure we understand what suffering is. And a lot of times, suffering it's not beating yourself up. Okay. Suffering a lot of times has the value of redemption, in that as we suffer, we can imitate the suffering of Christ on the cross. As he suffered and gave himself up on the cross, our salvation came to be because he allowed himself to prove his love for us by witnessing that I didn't even fight this. I accepted everything that happened to me. Now, where we have to draw the line, and I thought it was a great opportunity, and I'm going to take the same liberties to do this, Lord, because I think that the Holy Spirit has inspired this. And I know that one of the things that I want to get with you, Flor, because we've discussed this in the past, where does medicine stop, and where does our spirituality take us? My dad was intubated, and was intubated for almost 2 weeks. Now, it was a screw up in the hospital when he was taken there. They never had a sign that do not resuscitate. But in this case, the intubation was not an extraordinary means. It It was an ordinary means to keep his lungs working, to see whether or not they will get the fluid out of his lungs, and then he could be restored to using his lungs. And so I went to several councils regarding the decision that we had to make for Dad, because the option was to then remove the intubation and put a trach with a feeding tube. Now the church says we have to remember that we don't want to extend death, but we never want to give up on life. And so as dad was in bed with this intubation, and the most Dad did the last 2 weeks was, the first week he opened one eye, and the last week, or in the last 2 or 3 days of his life, he opened both eyes to look at each other, look at us. But here's where the redemptive value of that is. Had we given up on life, have we increased the morphine drip, my family would have missed out on countless rosaries that were offered, the divine mercy that was prayed at 3 o'clock every day, the many rosaries that were prayed in a room that they called the quiet room, that was not very quiet at all. But all those things would never have taken effect if we had thought that he had suffered enough. You know, that was one of the back and forth that we had with the doctors, because both doctors had the same opinion. When asked, how do you feel if you were in my shoes, what decisions would you make? And both doctors, both department heads, well, I had my mother and she had this, and basically I knew that she was never going to get better, so it was better just mercifully increase the drip and see her go away peacefully. That was one doctor. The other doctor spoke of another relative that he did the same thing with, and I told him, I said, Doc, I don't share your views, only because I am not one to play God. And so as long as we have a heartbeat, Doc, I want to make sure you know that. As long as we have a heartbeat, we have hope. We have hope. So with that, we're going to, and we decided to unintubate him while it was still early on, that he may still have enough fight in him to be able to overcome the shock of the removal of the tube, and so we chose the day, which was Wednesdays, and the hour 3 o'clock, which was the hour that Dad would offer in adoration every week. And so my dad will go before the Blessed Sacrament from 3 to 4 every Wednesday, and so we chose that hour because we felt, well, if he does not survive the procedure, at that moment, he will be with the Lord again, but this time for all eternity. And so we made that decision based on the hope that he would still recover. And we didn't want to give up. We didn't want to call the shot and say, hey, we're going to start the morphine drip right away. No. He had suffered enough, but by his suffering, so many rosaries, so many prayers, so many of my daughters and my nieces and brothers and sisters took time away from work, gave up work to make sure that Dad was not in the hospital alone those 2.5 weeks that he was there. He was never alone, except when security kicked us out, and then the next morning we were the first one in again. Now, does it have redemptive value, Floyd? Absolutely. Would we have not gone to work had Dad not been in the hospital sick? Of course not. Because he was sick, his suffering called us to a greater good, to be present, to honor Mom and Dad, So that's the redemptive value that I see in it, because as you commit to it, it calls for you to give more than you would have given up otherwise. Okay, so I hope that that's my view. That's how I saw it. That's how we saw it. That's how we lived it, Flor. And so redemptive value, absolutely. And you know, the funny thing about all this, Flor, is that I may not be around to hear it, but I know that my daughters, his granddaughters, have all been changed because of what they saw and what they not only saw, heard, and participated in. That's powerful. That would not have happened if Dad, if we had given up on that. So his suffering allowed us to grow, to appreciate life even more so. I mean, at the end of the day, what became the greatest gift that he could give us before that we can remember before he died was the fact that he opened his eyes, that I was able to see my father's eye, look into his eyes. How many times did that happen in my lifetime? And I took that for granted. And here comes one moment in my lifetime that after giving a talk, and I'm going to speak on this on Saturday at the homily, after giving a talk at Blessed Trinity on the Mass, run all the way across town to get there while my sisters were keeping them up because they had told them, my daughter, they had told them, keep your eyes open, Tony's coming, Tony's coming. And when I got there, then security didn't want to let me in. And I said, dude, we got a problem because I'm going in. And not only am I telling you that I'm going in, I'm clergy. So I'm allowed in. And that's my father on the other side. So you get your supervisors here because I'm going to do a sit down and you're going to drag me out of this lobby. But I'm going to see my dad today somehow. And took me about 20 minutes to get through the red tape and the nonsense. And when I got up there, Papi still had his eyes open and I was able to look into his eyes. What a joy. What a joy to be able to see that. And had he not fought the good fight, and it was nothing comfortable. I can only imagine what it must be like having a tube down your throat. He fought the good fight and allowed us those precious moments that today, and I make it so precious. And on Saturday are going to be the moments that will sustain us, that we had those moments with that. Redemptive, absolutely. Redemptive to me, to thank God that he gave him that strength for me to be able to see that. Now, the other part of redemptive suffering is when you offer your suffering for the sake of something or someone that's going through something. Okay. Let's say I'm not going to complain about my headaches because I'm going to offer this for people who have cancer in the brain, for people who need mental clarity and mental health. Maybe I'm going to stop complaining, or maybe I won't take that aspirin in solidarity with their suffering. That's redemptive. That's redemptive. Okay, so
thank you.
Thank you.
So by the way, what time is the service for your puppy? So on Saturday,
11. We're gonna have a viewing from 10 to 11. We're gonna recite the Rosary bilingual, and then at 11 o'clock we start the mass.
The mass. Oh.
Right. And so from 11 to 12 will be the mass, and it will be on YouTube, on Corpus Christi, Miami YouTube at the same time.
Oh, the usual. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Do you have like a organization for donations?
Yeah, Florida. You know, we put Corpus Christi as
the recipient.
As the recipient.
Okay.
The other one was the seminary and St. Jude, and whoever, you know, I'll leave it to people's heart. You know, that's another thing that thank you, Flor. You're always behind the scenes. Thank you. Another thing that we don't do during Lent is decorate the altar with flowers. Okay, so we wanted to make sure that, you know, people always feel like, you know, I want to give flowers, and that's great. But during this, what we usually do is we'll use like some of the flowers left over to decorate the altar. So in a way, the spirit of the individual that has passed or was prayed for will remain in the sanctuary. But during Lent, we don't use flowers. And so once again, we strip everything to try to be, to create the visual awareness that we're in a different season. On Sundays, you're not going to hear the Gloria at the beginning of the Mass. We're not going to hear Gloria anymore till the Easter Vigil on Saturday before Easter. So, and then when it gets played and when it gets sung, you'll see, man, it's a big deal. The lights come on, the horns start to play, the music gets loud, because it's a big deal to be able to recite and sing Gloria to God in the highest, right? So that's the reason. That's one of those little details that in the liturgy of the Mass that changes so that it can adapt to this journey that we're on to get to the summit. You know, we're in the valley and we start coming up to get to the summit. Okay? Good? Anybody else got any other questions? All right, great. All right. I don't mean that great that you don't have questions. I mean great that we're going to move on to the next thing. All right. We're going to do the 5th commandment. Okay? And I hope you guys can see this. Thou shalt not kill. Okay. Now, important why this is a serious commandment, because when we kill someone, okay, when we destroy life, we are erasing a future. Okay. One of the sad realities, and we hear so much about pro-choice or the anti-abortion movement, and then the abortion movement, and there's always this conflict. Well, here's the reality, that when we destroy life, okay, when we destroy life, we destroy a future. Have no idea of what this child, what this baby was coming into the world to achieve. The sad reality is that people will tell you, well, they're just cells. Okay, well, stand back and let's see how long they're going to be cells for. Because at the end of the day, if they're just cells, then there won't be no baby in 9 months. But if there's a baby at the end of the 9 months, well, it wasn't just cells, it was a baby. And so the argument serves no merit. But the sad reality is that when we destroy life at its very beginning, we lose sight of what life is from that moment on. And so one of the things that there's a phrase that says the church must defend life from womb to tomb. Okay. One of the things that is going to be so tragic in the years to come, and I'm not talking about very far down the road, where medicine is going to dictate what year you're going to die, and you have no purpose in living because you serve no purpose, and that's not too far ahead of us. Okay, I remember this with let's say Tuesday a week ago, where the doctors sat in front of us and told us, well, your dad only has one kidney, and that kidney is about 30% operation, and he's got a pinched vein on his neck, which is not allowing enough blood to go into the head, and the stroke he had was on the left side, and it's massive, and we don't believe that he'll be able to recover from that. And on top of that, he's got an aneurysm, and it's a size 8. At size 10, it's going to blow. He's got COPD from his asthma, so he's always going to struggle with breathing. And now he's going to have to go to special therapy because he's not able to move the right side of his body. And all these things are building a case with the intent to give up on life. No, as long as there's a heartbeat, there is life. And I'm not going to be the one giving up. And I don't want to extend life beyond its ordinary means, but I don't want to give up on life neither. My dad came in here to fight for his life. And that I will stand in his corner and I will cheer for him until the Lord calls him home. Then we're done. But not when a doctor tells me all these things. I mean, to me, and then he blew it out of the water when he says, "Oh, and your dad has an enlarged heart." I said, "Okay, that one I knew." All the other stuff surprised and shocked me, man. Oh yeah, I knew he had an enlarged heart. No one could love as much as that man did if he didn't have a heart that big. Oh, okay. So we just moved on past that. But he knew that what I was trying to say. Listen, it's what you have found. We had no idea that he had. This man was 92 years old and he was doing push-ups in September. It's not an ordinary man. This was an extraordinary man who put a lot of energy into the love of neighbor. And we're going to fight for him because he not only is our dad, but he's somebody who has taught us what love and family is all about. And so we defend life at the end. Okay, we're not going to take medicine to tell us what to do. Now, if the case was that if we remove this, he's going to pass, or we can keep him alive by extraordinary means, then that ain't fair neither. Because at the end of the day, if those organs have already failed, then the Lord is calling him home. But you cannot deny. And then there was another one, and they came up. Florida, I don't know about this one. This one came up as well. They the conversation, we to deny food and liquid? I says absolutely not. Food and liquid till the very end. Otherwise, I'm starving and killing a man. And so, do not stop feeding and hydrating the body. If the other organs give up, then that's what will happen. But the body must be fed and it must be hydrated. That is the dignity of man. Okay? So when we say thou shalt not kill, it's because when we take the life of anyone, we've erased a future that was to come. None of us are here in this world because God had nothing else to do. God dreamed us. And he dreamed Flora into being a nurse. And through Flora, he was able to touch the sick and care for the sick. And through each and every one of us who are mothers, he's able to touch the children of tomorrow. And through the fathers, he's able to provide for the families at home. There's always a plan. And so we respect life from womb to tomb. That's it. Only God gives life. Only God takes life. That is the stand of the church. Okay? Now, the sixth commandment. I think I will do this one in red because it's important. Mark, give me that book that's in front of you. The paper that was there on top of that thing before you sat. Hang on, guys. Yes. No, not just this. So I want to make sure I name it the way they have it in short form. You shall not commit adultery.
Crime.
Okay? Thou shalt not commit adultery. Now, I know that I don't have anybody younger than 18 years old on the class. Anybody raise their hands? You're not, get out of here, bro. You've been long past 18. All right. Now, this is important, okay? Now, God created the sexuality or the intimacy between man and woman for two reasons. One was to procreate, and the other is to bond, solidify a marriage, and to procreate into a marriage. Between a man and a woman, there is an incredible attraction. Okay, we're wired that way. Okay, there is no getting around it. We're wired that way, and we're wired that way because we're able to bring forth the mystery of life or the miracle of life into being. Now, the church teaches, okay, that this intimacy is only to be used in a sacred marriage, okay? In a sacred marriage. If we're outside of a marriage, okay? If we're outside of that marriage, and once again, I want to make sure that I'm clear to everyone, and that I don't come across as, ooh, you're doomed, right? There's a lot of people who take this class with the intent to be able to get married in the church, okay? Now, this commandment calls us to respect the intimacy of a man and a woman. Now, that means to have a clear head. That means to have a clear heart. You can look at a woman and you can say, woo, she's pretty. You can look at a woman and say, ho, 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 ho. That ho, 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 ho just got you in trouble because you weren't admiring beauty. You were thinking something else, okay? And when I say men, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm an equal opportunity individual because women have gone beyond where they used to be before. Women can look at you and go, just as bad as the men do nowadays, right? So here's the trick. Whether or not you know that you are in your conscience looking at somebody and admiring the beauty that God has created in her, or if you're looking in a way that it's not clean and it's definitely not something that you want to write to mom about, right? So if you look at it or you look at her one time and you admire the beauty, you're okay. If you stop, turn around and look again, you're in trouble, baby, because your mind is already thinking of things you shouldn't be thinking about. Okay? So what this commandment reminds us is to respect the intimacy that should take place only between a man and a woman. Okay? Now, any sexual act outside of that desire to procreate or to bond, okay? And there's nothing in a marriage, there's nothing wrong with the desire to bond because it is the moment where you are one flesh, okay? That moment you are one flesh. And that's a gift from God to the couples. But if at any moment, that intimacy between a man and a woman, or a husband and a wife, if at any moment that desire is not to bond or to procreate, but to gratify a desire, you're not there for the right reason. You're not there for the right reason. Even if you are with your spouse, you should always see your spouse with a desire of bonding with her, not as a tool to gratify your needs. Okay, I always tell, in fact, that this past weekend, I was with the couples who were preparing for marriage.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Absolutely. I was going there. See if what I'm going to say now, it says the same thing. If at any time, okay, and this is what I tell the couples when they're preparing for marriage. I don't come here to judge you, okay? But I will share with you something that I've learned in my lifetime. If you are absolutely sure that the spouse or the person that you have chosen to be your spouse or bride for the rest of your life, walk this journey together, is with you because he loves you, not because of what he can get from you, then you'll have no problem in abstaining until the day of your honeymoon. But if you have a problem with that, I would suggest that you guys need to sit down and talk. Because here's the reality, Edwin. A lot of times people misconceive what love is, what true love is. It's not so much what happens in the bedroom. A lot of times true love is shared by nothing more than holding hands. And that's enough. You know, about 3 or 4 years ago.
I believe it. I believe that.
All right. 3 or 4 years ago, and this is my point, Edwin. And I was asked to come see a gentleman who was an elderly gentleman who was sick at Palmetto Hospital, and the wife was pretty distraught, and they didn't know how long he was going to last, but they wanted to see if someone from the church could come and pray with them. While I was there with them, the husband passes away. Just happened, man. And so I'm there. I stay counseling the wife. They have been married for 64 years, dude. 64 years. And we were there for probably about a couple of hours, right? At one point, she gets up and she goes to the side of the bed. She grabs his hand and puts his hands in between her two hands. And she just claps them together. And then she looks at me and she says, Tony, how I wish I could feel the warmth of his hands again. Blew me away. See,
Oh, did he pass away? Or
yeah, he
what?
passed only like minutes after I got there, he passed. And interesting thing that one is that she made that comment, and then I asked myself, when was the last time I held my wife's hand? And I often share that when I speak to couples, and even people who've been married for some time, and I get this blank stare, because you don't realize that there'll be a moment in your life where that will be so important, and that will be the only thing that you have left. And to me, it was an incredible teaching moment for me to be able to see that, to hear that, and to learn that. To me, that was incredibly powerful. And so I share that with you only because I know that many of you are preparing for your marriage, for your matrimony. And listen, hold hands as much as you can, because when couples hold hands, not only are they reassuring each other of their presence in each other's lives, but they're witnessing to the world something that the world doesn't believe still exists. One of the incredibly powerful things that I was able to cherish with my parents was that every anniversary that they had, I was present. This coming May 1st will be the first anniversary that I won't be with them, because I was born within their first year of them getting married. And so every year that they were married, the 62 years that they were married, I was present. And to me, it's an incredible testimonial of what love is, that to my parents, they never gave up. And where you saw one, you always saw the other. And even to this day, guys, my mom will go to the clinic, and it's only been, it's going to be, it's a week today. And she'll go to the clinic, and the people ask me, where's your husband? Where's your husband? Because they went everywhere together. And then she says, I have to tell him, se no fue. He's no longer with us. He's no longer with me. And that is powerful, to be able to connect. And they witnessed to everyone who saw him what love could be. And listen, at the end of the day, just keep it sacred. Keep your intimacy sacred. Don't let it be tarnished with outside noise. You know, in the world today, so many bedrooms are filled with pornography, and people have to have it on in order to do their thing. And you wonder, where is that mind, and where are those hearts at? And so pornography is a sin against the sixth commandment. Not only is it because you are altering the purpose of the intimacy, but remember what you're also doing is you're promoting a lifestyle that is not what the Lord calls us to have. Years ago, there was the first year I started teaching the RCIA class. I came in at the very end because the girl who was teaching the class, some things got complicated with her, and she could no longer make it. And so they asked me to take over the class, and I took over the class, and I had like five classes left. And this one girl who would always get there late, and but wouldn't miss a night, but she was always 15, 20 minutes late. And the night before we had the rehearsal, she approaches me and she says, Deacon, I'm struggling with whether or not I should continue and get confirmed. And I says, why? She says, well, my lifestyle. I said, what about your lifestyle? He says, what I do for a living, Deacon, I don't think I should do if I'm going to get confirmed. I think that I would need to change, and I don't know whether or not I have the courage to change. I says, but you've been coming for an entire year. He says, yeah, Deacon, but see, Deacon, I'm a new dancer, and I have a son. He's 3 years old. I'm a single mom, and by dancing at the bar, I make enough money to pay the rent and help and be able to pay the needs that he has. And I was overwhelmed with total humility and love for this lady who had been so honest to herself, in that she recognized that the next step would call on her to leave the old her behind and become a new person. I asked her, are you willing to give up that life? And she says, yes, but where can I find work? I don't know how to do anything. And I says, we'll work things out. Don't give up. Don't give up. You know, you're going to have to, at some point in your life, walk away from that. Because no son wants to ever hear that my mom dances nude so that men can get off with my mom. No son is going to want to hear that. And I says, put it to prayer. Put it to prayer and see if the Lord will help you. But I'm sure that the Lord wants you. Put it to prayer. See if you have the courage to come back. She never came back. And that's the sad reality. That a lot of people who are in this world of pornography, who are in this world that they decide I'm going to go to one of these bars and watch the girls dance nude for me, or do a lap dance, or do whatever they do there. The sad part is that they don't realize that woman is somebody's mom, that woman is somebody's daughter, and that's what you're promulgating. That is what your money is going towards, to keep the doors open for places like that. The story, when you put the story and you put a face in front of it, it's a whole lot different, because then we understand why it's a sin. This poor woman, and God knows that I keep her in my prayers in hope that wherever she is, she was able to move away from that. But how sad that you have a son, you have a desire to change, because she went the whole entire year. And at the end, she faced up to her limitations and gave up. But the people who sign on to pornography, the people who buy the magazines, the people who buy and keep those places open, that's that. And so I always bring that story up because it's important, as these so-called bachelor parties and the women have their own thing too now. Remember that you're feeding through the eyes and tampering with what the heart was made for. You're no longer loving. You're destroying. You're tarnishing the beauty of the intimacy that God created in a man and a woman. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's your sixth commandment. Anything outside of the purpose to bond and procreate, it's not the plan of God. Okay? Any questions?
There is a question in the chat, Deacon Tony.
Yes, ma'am.
Somebody wants to know when is the date for the confirmation.
Oh, good question. I don't have that in front of me, but I promise, Flo, you remind me next Thursday. Okay? It's not within the next 5 weeks. Okay, so it's down the road, but I do need to tell you that date, because everyone's start signing in with Leslie or Dalia. Make sure that everything is in place. Okay, just to make sure that nobody has anything, any paperwork missing that we need to have, or any information that we need to have. Make sure that all of that is available. Okay. So thank you, Flor. You know, one of the and then I guess next week we'll go into the seventh commandment. But one of the things that I don't see, or like I said, I got the screen full of faces here. I don't see the chat. So thank you for keeping me in connection with that. Okay. So guys, yeah.
You wanted me to remind you about the books, the Lent books.
Oh, yes. Okay. On this coming Sunday, okay, and we're going to have them at Corpus. So if you go to the Mass Saturday, see Yemar. point a little bit to the screen so everybody knows. Go. Look at that face. He should be on America's Most Wanted. Look at that face. Yeah. All right. So Yamar will have the books and these books that Annette and Yamar brought us from Little Flower. They didn't see. The next one is Do Not Steal, but they didn't steal that. They just borrowed it for us because they were free there, and so they brought it to us. So we're going to go ahead and use them and give them out, and hopefully it will help you during this Lenten season. That was the whole purpose of the books being printed over there. So we were able to get some to bring to Corpus. Okay, so either Sunday or Saturday, if you come by Corpus, just see Yamar or myself and ask me for the book, and we'll be more than happy to give them to you. Okay, it's free again. This stuff is so fantastic. I love the Catholic Church. Everything is free. Unbelievable. And then people complain. They're always asking for money. Unreal.